Yes, I've been interested in emerging markets for a very long time, over 30 years. And the reason that I was initially attracted to emerging markets, same reason as today. Really looking for ways to reduce poverty and doing it through technology, applications of technology, innovative business models, cost models, and with very dedicated, bright, and good people. And the market for these countries has just grown. It's attracted the best and the brightest, and it's more fun today than it ever has been. You can measure the success in terms of outputs or outcomes. We are looking for measuring outcomes. So in other words, it's not just how many jobs you have created. It's the wages that you've created. Are they good wages? Are they fair wages? Do you have child labor? Are people advancing in their careers? Impact investing, at least the market-based solutions end of the spectrum, is vitally important for emerging markets private equity. We can learn from the traditional mainstream players, but this is going way beyond. It's finding new ways to attract that emerging consumer. Most of the GPs do not call themselves impact investors, but of course they are. Many of us who went into private equity and emerging markets in the first place were motivated by social and environmental benefits as well as financial returns. But I think there's a huge reluctance on the part of the general partners to self-identify at this point until there's evidence that impact investing really can work. Now, there's another group of GPs, and I'd say fewer than 10%, who see impact investing as a way of raising money. And indeed, there are a growing number of LPs, limited partners, who are demanding more for their money. Not just returns, but they want the returns. They also want the social and environmental benefits. So you've got these two dynamic forces. And I think what's going to converge is once we have a performance database, once we have success stories, and once we prove that it's a respectable and profitable way to do business, that there will be hopefully 60–70% of the GPs self-identifying as impact investors. If I could only invest in one emerging market, I would choose one in sub-Saharan Africa, and I think it would be Nigeria. Nigeria, to me, is extremely challenging. You've got enormous income disparity, and it could be a test case for the next generation of frontier markets, and one where impact investing could provide a really good case study of how you can make money and contribute to social and economic and environmental benefits. The economy is well poised, but there are enormous, enormous challenges in terms of infrastructure, inequality, and as I said, the poverty. That would be an exciting challenge for me, to make money there and to improve the social and environmental factors. To raise a new fund these days in emerging markets, you really have to convince people that you've got a robust pipeline of deals. It's increasingly difficult for many of the limited partners to justify emerging markets private equity to their investment committees because the returns are not as high as they've been in the past. So what is really important is focusing on those deals in the pipeline. Are they attractive deals? Are they available at good valuations? Is there a compelling investment thesis that you can actually make money? And the next very important thing is you have to convince people that you are fair to your team members and they're highly motivated to stay, because there's been a huge exodus of people over the last 10–15 years those who are from successful or unsuccessful general partners who go off to start their own firms or join others. So that solidarity, that alignment of interest within the GP. And I think that the third factor, and one that I feel very strongly about, is that you really need to demonstrate how you're going to make money and comply with very high standards of social, environmental, and governance principles. I've been talking about impact investing, but even before you get to impact investing, a minimum standard is ESG. And increasingly, you'll find that most of the limited partners demand that you have an ESG policy and you comply with it and you prove that the process exists and you're a responsible investor. If you look at the last 10 years and try to project the next 10 years, the changes are going to come much more rapidly. They're going to come from different directions. I think that what's really exciting for me is that we're going to have an opportunity to redefine emerging markets private equity and find new ways to generate liquidity, find new ways to increase those returns for the investors, and hopefully come up with new platforms, perhaps hybrid platforms that would involve debt, equity, and combinations of different durations of instruments. And the most radical idea that I've heard has very much to do with the technology that enables crowdfunding. And perhaps in the future, we can even provide a wider base for emerging markets private equity, extending beyond the very rich and very institutional investors to the retail investors, even those investors who live in the local communities in which we're investing. There are so many risk perceptions about emerging markets private equity, and I think that for me, what really makes me angry about it is a lack of intellectual honesty. Those of us who have been working in emerging markets private equity have learned so much from people on the ground who have worked very hard to create new models, to really share with others in their communities ways of doing business that may not be familiar to us. And for people in developed markets with very luxurious lifestyles to say that emerging markets are too risky, they're not intelligent business models, I think is really something that bothers me greatly, and I'm trying to find evidence to dispel it. But I think going forward, where the predictions are now that emerging markets by the next 7 or 8 years will be larger in GDP than developed markets. And in the next 20 years, 93% of the middle class in the world will be living in emerging markets. Intellectually, we better start paying attention to these people. We better start learning, we better start cooperating with these people and recognizing we're all in this together.